Hi, guys, and welcome back to Model Behavior. I am so excited to give you my weekend recap, but just to let you know, it is now Thursday, and I'm finally recovered enough to be able to talk about this weekend. So today, I wanted to give you a little bit of a weekend recap and then talk to you a little bit about what I was thinking about after that, which was the elements that made this weekend so fun and kind of the science behind it, because of course, what else are we going to talk about here? I spent this last weekend in Vail with a bunch of my friends for the experts only ski weekend. It was a John Summit show, and there were a ton of other DJs that played, and there were so many events happening around town. So a couple of us headed up to Vail to ski. So we headed up early before all of this happened on Friday. And I am so glad we did, because Colorado legitimately got hit with one of the biggest storms of the season. It snowed over 3 feet in 3 days. The roads were closed. Nobody could get through. There were people who had tickets to the Friday show that left Denver at around noon on Friday, and they legitimately missed the entire concert. But thankfully, the three of us got there a little early on Friday, and of course it's already dumping snow, but we had such a fun ski day. At first it was a little bit overwhelming because it was mine and my friend Delaney's first time skiing Vail, and Vail is notorious for having horribly long lift lines, but we kind of figured since it was a Friday that there wouldn't be as many people, but we were wrong. Everybody was flying in for this specific holiday weekend, and because there was so much happening around town, so we got a little overstimulated on the way up. But our friend Mehek has skied there a few times before, and she led us to the promised land. She led us to the back bowls, and we had such a fun time. It was literally knee-deep powder. We were the only ones on these runs, not another person in sight. And granted, you couldn't see very far because it was snowing so hard that you couldn't see someone that was like 50 meters in front of you. But it was just the most buttery, bouncy turns that I've ever experienced. And it was just such an amazing time. We just kept talking about how good of a day it was. But then it started snowing harder. And so we kind of decided, okay, maybe we should turn in. So we beelined for Avanti, which is this restaurant that we have in Colorado, except Delaney and I ended up going the wrong way, and we got separated from Mehek, and we both ended up on a full-on trek through Vail Village in ski boots. That was not super fun, but once we got to the party, it all ended up being a good thing because we caught the end of John Summit teasing his new single. He was not supposed to be at this party, but he ended up showing up. And so just as we finally made it, we kind of snuck in through a back gate, and John Summit himself casually walked by us, and we were just kind of in shock. We were like, was he really just right there? Like, the only other place I've seen this man is TikTok or next to Alex Earl. We had a really fun time at the après party. It was snowing so hard, but we were just really getting down. And at the end of the day, we had kind of realized, like, okay, we got up at 5 a.m. this morning, and we have not eaten or drank anything all day. So we went straight from skiing to dancing, and then we went and got the biggest burgers that I've had in a really long time, and it was so good. We all got different fries, and we all shared them. It was just the perfect end to the night. So then we check into our hotel, and we started strategizing hard. We had this idea of how are we going to get behind the DJ booth for Saturday's show. So we started using the power of the DM. We were using LinkedIn to find these people, okay? And we DM'd everyone from John's managers to his production team. We sent out so many messages, and we were just giggling the whole time, which I think was like the most fun part about all of this. We were asking ChatGPT what we should say. It was giving us the worst ideas, and we were just laughing. So, spoiler alert, we did not get a single response. A couple of us got left on scene, which I'm going to take as a W, but not a single response. But for the effort, I'm going to give it an A+. And there was a little bit of manifestation that happened there for the next day. So the next morning, a few more of the girls met us at the hotel, and we had up the free hotel breakfast because we're responsible. And it was such a good breakfast, like the whole spread, omelets, waffles, fruit, eggs. Like, it was so good. And while we're sitting there eating breakfast, there's this big long table in the middle of the room, and we noticed tons of people working on laptops, just looking super serious. And so, of course, Delaney had to do a little bit of a drive-by, and she came back to the table and was like, I think that's John Summit's entire management team. Like, his entire team was editing footage right there from the show the night before, and they looked locked in. So, of course, we're like, should we talk to them? But the vibe was just off. I'm telling you, like, the vibe was not good. They looked stressed, let me tell you. So after that, as we're walking out into the shuttle to go to Vail Village, and while we're on the shuttle, we are kind of squeezed in there because a few people didn't book spots, but the driver just like let them squeeze. And so we spotted this really hot guy with a mustache. Of course, he has a mustache. And we kind of were just like whispering as girls do, but he didn't notice. Don't worry. We were a couple rows back. And so then when we get out of the shuttle, he like held the door open, and it was just like, we're like, oh my gosh. And so then we hit up a dive bar, and we immediately befriended our bartender. His name is Mike. And he was kind of like our undercover consultant, because right after we sat down, hot mustache guy walks in with his friends and sits down at the bar across from us. And of course, we're just laughing about it. So we start joking with Mike, and I ended up sending him on a drive-by mission because I wanted him to see if mustache guy would still be hot without a mustache. And we, of course, are just laughing about this, and Mike is super into it. So he does the drive-by, literally looks this man up and down, like so conspicuously. And of course, we just got a good laugh out of that. Then we ended up leaving, and we went to the big day party, which was at Avanti again. And the place was already packed when we got there, and I have no idea. Like, we were so lucky, but I saw at the end of the bar, there was a big six top, and there was only two people sitting there. And so I just went up and started talking to them, and then asked if we could, take the rest of the seats at their table. And there were probably, at this point, I think there were like four or five of us, but we had more friends coming. So I was like, in the long run, this will work out. And so then they were so sweet. And so we just started talking to this couple. And then as the day went on, they bought us a ton of shots. And it was such a fun time. And as the day went on, the place got so crazy. So while we're sitting there, I did notice that there was like this like roped off area, and there was like a curtain right next to our table. And so people were like walking in and out of it and like going through the staff entrance, which went outside straight to like the DJ booth and like the area where people were dancing. And the snow at this point is just dumping. So we're kind of just like hanging out at our table. Like, we still have a full like 4-hour show to go to tonight that's outside. And so we don't want to get too soaked with snow before we have to. But I'm just like intrigued by this roped off area. So at one point we're outside on the dance floor, just taking little dance breaks, because again, don't want to get totally covered in snow before the night. And at one point I noticed a guy that came out of the roped off area, and there was like a curtain so you couldn't see back there. And so I just went over to him and I introduced myself, and we just started talking. And then I just obviously go, like, what's behind the curtain? And he was like, oh, that's the artist area. And so then I was like, oh, are you a DJ? And he was like, yeah. So now we know that that's the artist area. So mental note taken. And so in between all of this, we're going back and forth between our table and the dance floor and just having the best time. And more of our friends show up. So now there's probably a group of like 14 people. It got pretty big. And so we're just having the best time. And at the end of one of our dance breaks, I'm lagging a little bit behind. I don't remember why I was so far behind my friends as they were like heading back into the restaurant, back to our table. But there's this guy that walks by, and in my mind, I'm like, he looks so familiar. So, of course, I'm on one at this point, right? Like, I am just, like, so social. I am a social butterfly. Like, once I get in my zone, you quite literally cannot stop me. And so I, of course, just start talking to him, and I was like, because I was thinking, like, he looks so familiar. Maybe he, like, DJ'd the day before at the day party the day before. I don't know. So I stopped him, and I was like, hey, like, did you DJ yesterday? And he was like, oh, yeah, I did. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's where I remember him from. And so we just kind of got to chatting, and I was just joking to him about how hard it was snowing yesterday and how we were, like, getting down in our ski boots, and, like, we were just kind of I don't know, just small talk. And then he asked for my name and I introduced myself and he introduces himself. And for the purpose of this story, I'm just going to call him Bill. So he's like, hi, I'm Bill. And so then he's like, I hope I'll see you around a little later. And I was like, yeah, sure. And of course, this guy is also really cute. Like he has like the perfect teeth and he was super tall. Oh my gosh. Anyways, so then I go back. And as I'm heading back to our table, I'm just really thinking like, man, why does that guy look so familiar? And then it hits me. This guy is one of the guys that in our frenzy the night before, I had sent him just the most unhinged DM on Instagram. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I was thinking about his name and I was like, his name sounds really familiar. And sure enough, I whip out my phone. There's terrible service because there's so many people around, but I managed to load up my IG DMs and there it is, his face and my unhinged message in my DMs. Thankfully, I'm so thankful for this. He had not opened the DM. I was like, okay, good. So obviously I immediately unsend it. Like cannot be caught red-handed like that, which in hindsight, it would have been kind of funny if I had just left it. But in any case, so a little bit later, we're just talking with our friends at the table that were there when we got there that are now basically like we've absorbed this couple into our group. And the artist tent opens and Bill walks out and he was just like looking all around. And I was like, what is he looking for? And then we lock eyes. We lock eyes from across the room and he like waves at me. And this was like I was like, oh my gosh, I am so cool. So he like waved at me and he like came over to our table and he gave me a hug and I introduced him to all my friends and it just made me feel so freaking cool. Okay. And so then we chat a little bit and then he goes because I guess he ended up DJing. So then at one point in the afternoon, someone pulls up John Summit's Instagram because we're wondering, like, is he going to show up at the day party again and DJ, which he did not DJ. He made a brief appearance, but that was it. So unfortunately didn't get a teaser of a set from him. But we're looking at his Instagram stories to see where this man is at. And he posts a picture of him. He had posted a picture of him on the chairlift with Bill. Literally, Bill is sitting right next to him, just like smiling. And this was like a common theme throughout the weekend. We would look at John Summit's Instagram stories and Bill would just be there. And I'm like, okay, so this guy is either like on his production team or they're like friends. Like, I have no idea. Another spoiler alert, this did not go anywhere. But I will say, like, just those moments at the day party, just like making friend after friend was so fun. Like it was literally such a core memory for me. Editing me here again, I almost forgot to wrap up the hot mustache guy story. Like I cannot believe I almost forgot. Oh my gosh. So this happened when we were also take a shot every time I say the word so in this episode. I'm sorry, I'm trying. This happened when we were at Avanti and I had just gotten done saying hi to Bill. At a certain point, while we're sitting at our table, hot mustache guy walks by and he turned around and I just started talking to him like I knew him, okay? That's my signature move. And I literally told him what transpired at the bar earlier in the day. I literally told him, you know, we were debating whether or not you'd be hot without a mustache, but I decided, yes, you would be because, I mean, look at those dimples. And of course, I'm just embarrassing the heck out of him, okay? He turns bright red. And of course, I secured those digits, so don't even worry about that. So after a bit, we're noticing the time and we're like, okay, we should walk over to the venue where the show is going to be at because there were a couple DJs that we really wanted to see that were opening for John Summit. And so we show up at the venue, it's still pretty early, so we get a spot pretty close to the front. But when I tell you this venue filled up quick, I'm not exaggerating. There were thousands and thousands of people at this concert. Like the show was sold out and then people were like hopping the fence. So it was not only sold out, it was also over capacity and it was like a little overwhelming at times, but thankfully we had like our big group of friends, so we kind of just spent the night like dancing, like having such a good time. And John Summit came on and his set was insane. At one point, again, I see my little diva Bill not just behind the DJ booth, but literally at the DJ booth with John Summit, just jamming out. And I'm like, oh, there's my friend Bill. And we just had such a fun night, just all of us dancing. So that was my weekend roundup. It was so much fun. The snow was just coming down. The next day, we managed to find a window in the weather where the roads were open and we were able to get through. And overall, it was just such a fun weekend. Editing me here, I had already been thinking about making this episode about the science of fun, but while I was editing, it made me think of something that one of my friends said this weekend. She kept saying, you guys, I'm going to say the F word. I'm having so much fun. And as I'm editing, I'm literally thinking, okay, take a shot every time I say the word fun. But I don't know what else to call it. It was such an enjoyable time. But I just thought that was kind of funny. So I had to pop in here and tell you guys that. Okay, so based on all of that, I wanted to talk about why this was such a legendary weekend. I'm not even kidding. This weekend was such a movie and I had so much fun. And so it really got me thinking about the elements that made it fun. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately because I realized that it's making just like ordinary things that happen in my life so fun in my memory. And it's making my life so interesting just by like changing the perspective that I take on certain events. So I was doing some reading and I kind of put together a list of things that I think can be helpful in engineering an unforgettable experience. What makes a weekend iconic? This is a formula based on people, setting, mindset, and then a little bit of luck. But if you're keeping an eye out, a lot of lucky things can happen to you. So number one is people. So research shows that a social connection is the number one predictor of happiness. This is in a Harvard study of adult development, and it was published in 2023. So the people you spend time with matter more than the activity itself when it comes to enjoying an experience. So it's important to surround yourself with people who bring energy, spontaneity, and shared enthusiasm. And this weekend was so fun because I was just with this really fun group of friends. And I just really feel like every girl brings something different to the table. And it just makes it such a fun time and such a fun vibe. And I will say, like, having that specific group of girls made this weekend particularly fun. So the number two thing in the fun formula is the setting. So novel environments boost dopamine and increase memory formation. So a new city, an exclusive party, or even just a different vibe than your usual scene can make a weekend stand out. This was my first weekend of like an EDM house show. I listened to a lot of EDM and house. If you're a tennis player, you know, we just listen to a lot of house music. But I had such a fun time because I'd never experienced a show like this. And I'd always wanted to experience like these big après ski parties that I'm seeing on, well, I don't have TikTok anymore, but YouTube Reels is my thing now. I know I'm not 100 years old, even though it sounds like it. I always see these big après parties over in Europe where everybody is just having such a good time. Everybody's in their ski gear. It's snowing. And I got to experience that this weekend. It was just such a huge party the whole weekend. Everybody was just having such a good time. Everybody was in a good mood. We were all socializing. And it was just that new environment that really made it such a fun weekend for me because I'd never experienced anything like that before. I've been skiing 1,000,001 times, but that specific scene was so new to me and it was so fun. So the third point that can lead to having a really iconic weekend is mindset. There's a study that came out in 2014 that shows that anticipation can increase happiness by up to 27%. Being open to the adventure and saying yes to unexpected opportunities creates the conditions for peak experiences. And I think also so something personally that led to me having a really good mindset going into this weekend is, again, the anticipation. So we had bought these tickets on pre-sale, literally the concert sold out within like minutes. And So we have been gassing up this weekend since October, and we had made the hotel reservation and we're making plans to catch up with our other friends. And I was just thinking about this weekend a lot and I was so excited for it. So I think when there is so much excitement building up to an event, it makes it such a fun experience. So even if you're not doing an insane thing this weekend or going to like an insane party or event, I think that getting excited in advance and embracing spontaneity can really lead to a really fun time. And another thing that's important with mindset is ditching the pressure for everything to be perfect. There were numerous things that did not go our way this weekend, but we still had such a fun time and we just giggled our way through it. And I think that was really fun. And I also definitely embraced spontaneity this weekend. So that was a really good time. Okay. The last point I have in the fun formula is luck. So I definitely think there's a way to hack your way into having luck. So it's not just like waiting for things to happen to you. It's actively seeking out situations where you can be like, oh, I'm so lucky. So legendary nights often involved an element of chance, the unexpected invite, the random celebrity encounter, or the guy who shoots his shot in your DMs, which all happened this weekend. So I think the way to hack luck is to increase what I call your luck surface area. So you have to put yourself in situations to where you can experience luck. So you have to put yourself in high energy, high social situations where magic can happen. So that's kind of my fun formula. And then the next bit that I want to talk about is why the best nights out have phases. Because that was something I was thinking about a lot this weekend. So it's really important to structure a night so that it doesn't flop. And obviously you're not thinking about this stuff on a night out, but I was really thinking about ways that you can kind of engineer a really fun weekend and why we think back to certain times and think like, wow, that was just a movie. So psychologists refer to temporal landmarks, so that's in quotes, temporal landmarks, as moments that break time into distinct phases, making experiences feel richer. This is from a 2015 study. The best weekends aren't one note, they evolve. And so that definitely happened to us, from our ski weekend to losing Delaney's glove to finding it again to taking a wrong turn to the après party to getting there late. But if we hadn't gotten there late, John Summit wouldn't have walked right past us. Like there were so many elements that didn't go great, but they really all added up to a really fun weekend. So once again, as I talked about, anticipation is scientifically proven to increase pleasure and dopamine levels. So this is what I call the buildup. So something that we really tried to prioritize is we called it the getting ready montage. Like getting ready with the girls, a very important ritual. So pregame rituals like getting ready, the pregame or hyping up the event makes it feel bigger than life. So if you don't have a big group chat going, you should. So romanticize the night before it even happens. So curate a playlist, send some flirty texts or DMs like we did, and just set the vibe. And those are little things that made this weekend super fun. So then the next phase of a good night out is the peak. So this is the moment of this is it. So for us, it was the dance floor euphoria, definitely some of the unexpected encounters, and definitely some inside jokes that came out of it. So the tip I have for the peak is don't peak too early. So there's a study came out in 1998 that was researching event sequencing. And research on event sequencing shows that delaying gratification leads to greater satisfaction. So obviously we think about that with relationships, but I want you to think about it when you are trying to curate an experience. So don't peak too early, delay that gratification. So for us, the best part was just dancing with all of my friends, and we just had such a good time. And that was at the end of the night. So, and at the end of the weekend. So it ended up being a really fun wrap up. The last step of having an amazing night out is the wind down. So memory research shows that we remember experiences based on how they end. So a well-paced, intentional come down locks in the good vibes. Definitely use that time to either get fast food at the end of the night or debrief in bed, share some giggles about what happened, but the wind down is really important. So a tip I have for that is to avoid chaotic endings. So losing your phone or drama or anything like that, which can definitely taint an otherwise great night. So again, the phases to the best nights out are the build up, the peak, and the wind down. And if you are intentional about making all of those good experiences, you're going to have a really fun night. So the next thing I want to talk about is how to balance bold moves with good decisions when it comes to a night out. So how are you going to be iconic without regretting it the next day? So I found a few points on that, but I did find a few interesting statistics when it comes to this balance. So one thing I was reading about is called the hot-cold empathy gap. And it explains how our decision-making shifts under the influence of emotion, alcohol, or excitement. So it's really important to know yourself and know that what seems like a great idea in the moment might not be when the sun comes up. And when it comes to alcohol, I don't drink too much just because it just makes my stomach hurt. So I never really have that issue. But I will say a lot of this just comes to trial and error, learning about how to push the envelope without thinking about it later and being like, wow, that was so embarrassing. I don't know. I don't fully have a problem with that, but I think it's just on a case-by-case basis. Okay, the next point. Impulse control research suggests that taking even a 10-second pause before making a big decision can improve the outcome. And this was published in the journal Science in 2009, which in research, we talk about high impact, low impact journals. High impact journals, science is at the top. So when in doubt, take a deep breath before making a bold move. Do not text your ex. Do not hop in a random Uber. And really think twice before you DDK with a guy you just met.
Editing me here again. DDK stands for Drink Dance Kiss, which I may have done at the concert this weekend, but I'm going to save that for another episode.
It can be really easy to jump into things in a night out when you're just feeling yourself, but definitely take that 10-second pause to really decipher whether or not this is a good decision for you and where you're at in your life at this point. Obviously, I am not the best person to be giving that advice considering how my weekend went, but I digress. Okay, the third point that I wanted to talk about is the social contagion effect. That effect shows that we subconsciously mimic the behaviors of those around us. This is really important, and I really wanted to include this because it's really important when you're going on a girls' trip or going on a night out to choose a group of people with a good mix of fun and level-headedness to balance out the energy. And I think that's part of the reason why this weekend was so good is because our group genuinely had the perfect mix of fun and level-headedness, and it made it so that we were having fun, but we all knew we had each other's backs, and it was just overall a really, really good time. So those are my thoughts on how to balance bold moves with good decisions based on science. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about is how to keep that main character glow alive instead of feeling post-weekend emptiness. I know a lot of us are weekend warriors where we're doing our 9 to 5, we're on our grind during the week, and then we plan these really fun weekends out. If you don't enjoy your job, this can get really, really bad. But I was really thinking about ways, because obviously every time I get back from a girls' trip, I'm like, oh, I'm so sad that it's over. But then it got me thinking about ways that I could kind of combat those feelings. So research definitely shows that the post-event blues are real and that dopamine drops after high-energy experiences can lead to a feeling of emptiness. One way to combat this is by extending the fun through reflection. So definitely keep the group chat alive, relive the best moments, and share photos. And just keep talking about how much fun it was, because that is a surefire way to not feel those post-weekend emptiness feelings. Second, research on anticipation versus reflection suggests that reminiscing about good times increases happiness levels long after the event. So when I think about this, I think about how important it is to romanticize your own life. So even a simple post-weekend recap text with your friends can make memories stick. Lastly, the fresh start effect, which this was proposed in a study in 2014, suggests that setting a new goal after a big event prevents post-event slumps. So plan something small and exciting to look forward to for the upcoming week so you don't feel like you crashed back to reality too hard. Even if it's something simple like a Pilates class with your friends. I'm going to a meetup with a bunch of the girls from my cycling studio tomorrow. Just make sure you make plans after the event so that you're not sad. And I've been doing this a lot lately after I get back from something really fun, and it's been so helpful for me. So all of these things are to say that iconic weekends don't just happen. They're a mix of great people, the right setting, an open mindset, and of course a little bit of luck, which you can kind of engineer for yourself. And I really think that by understanding the psychology of memory and anticipation, you can kind of engineer these unforgettable experiences while also keeping your main character energy alive. And so I'm really glad I got to talk about this on the heels of last week's episode on main character energy, because it really, going into the weekend, got me thinking about how I can embody that. That's all I have for you guys. I hope that you are having a really good day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.